tuned in to the PVD Horror Podcast. I'm Brandon, and today I have a special guest, Ronnie Hobbs, hanging out with me. He's a video game producer, creative director of the Gun Interactive, and has created titles such as Friday the 13th, the video game, and the upcoming Texas ChainSaw Massacre, which is set to release on August 18th. Ronnie, thanks for coming on the show, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, it's good to be here. I've been looking forward to it for quite a while. I know we've been chatting for a couple of years now, trying to find a
Yeah,
time. And, time flies. So I'm glad we're doing it before the game comes out. So yeah,
yeah,
thanks for
yeah.
having
So
me.
we met back in 2018 at the Salem Horror Fest.
What was the name of that place?
I think that was the 8-bit bar.
8-Bit Bar. I love
Yeah.
that place.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It was a good, that was my first
Cool.
time there because I would always go down for Salem Horror Fest, but I think that was like a newer spot. So yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I that was the first year I'd been to Salem actually, and now
Okay.
it's like a yearly ritual.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going this year, but I mean, stop me if you've heard this from before. I love going to Salem during Halloween, right?
Yeah.
Everyone does. That's why there's 500,000 people there. But it's so awesome, and we had a party there at the Bit Bar, yeah, with Kane and
Yeah.
playing the game, and that was a really cool experience. That was also the same year they showed the first Halloween, I think,
Yep. Yeah.
Halloween
That was the
premiere.
premiere.
That was a cool weekend, but yeah, I
Yeah.
forgot you're really close to it.
Yeah. Because that
Nice.
was funny because I was sitting there and that's when I introduced myself. I was like, man, I'm a big fan of the game. I was a backer like when it first released. And then Kane
Yeah,
had walked in, and so we started sitting there talking, and then we were all sitting down. And I noticed like it was like, what was it, me, you, Kane Hodder, and then Georgia Romero's son was there too.
yes, yeah, yeah. That wasn't a bad for a little arcade bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were some pretty cool people there that night. So
Yeah, man. So, Kane, he's a good person. Still to this day, he's probably like the best person I met at a convention. I remember the first time I met him, I was like walking with my son through Terracon, and we actually bumped into each other. And I kind of was like looking around, like, what the hell? And I looked at him like, oh, you're Jason. And
yeah,
he's like, oh, man. So, how has it been working with Kane over the years?
man, I tell you what, I might be saying this because I like the guy, but you've probably seen the same thing. If you ever go to a horror convention and Kane's there, and you
Yep.
see his line is wrapped around, it snakes through the convention and it wraps around several other people's tables.
Yep.
A lot of those people are repeat customers. And I tell
Yeah.
Kane this all the time when I talk to him, and he's like, yeah, I guess you're right. But he's so personable,
Yeah.
and he genuinely cares about his fans, and he talks to them and treats them like humans instead of just giving them an autograph and they run off as fast as possible. He'll take time, and a lot of times too long, and he'll chat
Yeah.
with you for 10 minutes a person, and people come back and they keep coming back.
Hmm.
And that's what you see at a convention. He is 100 times more personable if you know him in
Hmm.
person. Just so obviously we met him on Friday 13th, and growing up a fan of him in the movies, just like all the Jasons, but really I love Kane as well. And you never know what to expect, right? So, but just from the first day, he's just fun to be around. He's a cool dude, and he just does everything the right way. He's a hard worker, and I think over the years he's become a pretty close friend and someone I can text or call, or if we're ever in the same area, he'll have dinner with me and my kid and everybody. And just it's a really cool relationship that you don't always get when you work with people,
Yep.
right? I'm sure you can understand that. It's
Exactly.
like you meet someone, you don't really know what they're like, and then it turns into something that you never even thought. And
Mhm.
it's just really cool. I'm glad I call him for advice a lot, not just on video game advice, or like film and stuff, like just like life advice. So because he's been around the block, and he's got several kids, and yeah, you know about Kane, but yeah,
Yep.
he's as awesome behind the scenes as he is at conventions with people. So
That's cool.
yeah,
So, like we said, we talked for a few years now, but I think you had said something about living in Rhode Island before, right? Or just
I lived in
visiting?
Pennsylvania for a while. So
Okay.
I played junior hockey. I traveled, lived in a lot of different states. Rhode Island, oddly enough, is one of the only states I've never been to.
Oh,
Somehow,
okay.
I traveled around all of Northeastern. I mean, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey. I mean, everything, Boston. Just
Mhm.
never Rhode Island for some reason. I hear it's awesome, and I've always wanted to get there, and just hasn't happened.
Oh. Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought you came down here before because I thought we talked about going to like one of the Providence Bruins games, but
Ye-
Tony Todd,
Oh
he
yeah.
lived down here and we had him on the show a couple last year, and we were talking about all the games and stuff, and then so he was inside in one of your games, Layers of Fear.
Yeah.
I was telling him, I was like, yeah, I'm a big fan of that game. Ronnie had sent me that, and he was just like, I know their next project, and tell them I'm going in on.
Oh man. What's funny is like I've actually never met Tony in person.
Okay.
Every time I plan to go to a convention that he's going to be there, something happens. Either he can't go or I can't go. And it's just been this whole thing of like, I never actually met the guy other than talking to him during voiceover and things like that and about projects. But yeah, I've always wanted to meet him. And oddly enough, I can never actually do it. I'm destined to think that it's never going to happen. But yeah, he was in Layers of Fear too. And he's the narrator in that game, as you know. But he's just so good in everything. Like just his voice alone. I remember there was a time before we had cast him and we had just some generic VO in the game, because that's what happens a lot of times. You write a generic script and a generic kind of placeholder, and usually it's by someone on the team. They just say the lines so you can kind of understand them and understand the game flow. But then when he records the lines and you put his voice in the game, it just, a light switch gets kicked on and it's just incredible. And that's what he can do for anything. Movies, like visual or audio wise, he's great. I love that guy. So yeah, he's cool.
So now, Ron, we have all crazy stories of how we all got hooked on the horror films. Can you share your first experience with horror?
Yeah. So how old are you, by the way? Is that a secret?
No, I'm 37.
Okay, so I'm older than you. I'm like 45, about to turn 46. So my first experiences were the early 80s. So I remember. Actually, the first horror movie I saw was, hang on a second, Jamie Lee Curtis, Prom Night.
Okay.
I snuck downstairs. I didn't think my parents knew that they knew I was there, but they knew the whole time. And I was hiding behind one of the recliners, like an inch away from them, as if they wouldn't know, but somehow I didn't think they did. And I watched about half the movie, and that was the first horror film I saw. And that kind of got me hooked a little bit. And of course, there's like Poltergeist and all that. But I think it was Friday the 13th was the first slasher, a traditional slasher that I'd seen. And that kind of opened the doorway to a lot of other things. And obviously Texas Chainsaw came out in 74, so before I was born. But it was about 1985 when I first saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I don't know how your childhood was and if you had access to like VCRs.
Yeah.
And a TV that was your own, but we had a TV that we'd play on, but you couldn't just hook a VCR up. Like kids these days don't know the struggles of having to like rent a VCR or borrow one, right? And then you had to get the tape. So there was a place called Movie Warehouse. It was a couple blocks from my house in downtown Lexington, Kentucky, where I lived. And me and my friends and my cousins, we'd walk up to the video store and we'd rent video games. And I've told the story before, but there was an older gentleman there that he would slip us horror films for free in with our video games. Totally, you would be in jail for that today, right? He's like, hey kid, check out Cannibal Holocaust or check out Texas Chainsaw. So he slipped in Texas Chainsaw Massacre one day, and we'd watched several movies that weekend, but we saved it for last. And we had this like, I don't even know if you could legally be there now, but it was a basement that was all gravel. There was one light. There were holes in the ground. I don't know where these holes went to. They had like a pipe, some kind of drainage ditch. We used to take the TV down there. In this super dark, dusty, it looks like the basement in our game, actually. It's very, very reminiscent. Not a friendly place, and we would hook up the TV down there and we'd watch scary movies. And that's the first place we saw Texas Chainsaw. And we turned it off about 45 times and, run away and then come back. You know how it is when you're a kid. But that was my introduction to horror, was really Friday the 13th and like Poltergeist and things like that in the early 80s. So.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So now,
what was the first one you saw, by the way? What was the first movie you saw? Do you remember?
First movie I've seen was Waxworks.
Oh man, yeah, okay.
Yeah, my grandmother, my grandmother put me onto horror, so I'd always watch horror movies with her, going over to her house and everything and watching the film. So yeah, that was my first one.
Nice.
So now, what inspired you to get into the world of video games, man?
Well, in the 80s growing up, I definitely caught the video game bug like every other kid, even before Nintendo, I had an Atari. That was probably my first system. And I don't know, it was easy to get hooked after that. I grew up playing sports and I wanted to play professional basketball and then professional hockey. And I also wanted to be an actor. So I did a lot of things, and video games was like number 3 on that list. The other 2 didn't work out, but I tried and did some cool things. But ultimately I just kind of fell back into it. But just growing up playing video games, it kind of consumed my life there for a while. Like, we didn't have the internet, what it was like. So you were playing video games, or you were outside half the day, inside half the day, and we had a healthy balance, that's for sure. But I definitely grew up playing video games, and it just, became my thing for a long time until I could start working in the industry. So
Now, what are some of your favorite video games of all time?
yeah, probably my favorite video game is probably Final Fantasy Tactics. You probably may have never played that. It's a spin-off of a Final Fantasy game. Um, Morrowind, so one of the Elder Scrolls games, Morrowind. I have a place in my heart for that game. And I play, here's the secret, I play like every game that's released.
Yeah.
Like, I try to play every game just for research and for work. So a lot of the fondness I have of video games was from way back in the day when I didn't play them for research, And I'm sure you can relate to watching a movie, not an enjoyment, but just to study it and just kind of check it out. Whereas, 15 years ago, you would have watched it as a fan, right?
Yeah.
With a different lens. And unfortunately, a lot of my video game time is devoted to studying them and not just enjoying them anymore. Yeah, I play everything from sports games to shooters to RPGs to like JRPGs to open world Western RPGs to Sims to everything. Yeah, I've basically had every video game console ever. So I've been around a long time. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, can you tell me how Gun Interactive was first started? Like how'd that get off the ground?
Yeah, so Wes Keltner, he's our president and CEO. He's known as like doing the butts in our game online. He always jokes that he sculpts the butts, and the running joke of like Tiffany's booty, and all of our characters have good butts, but he does a lot more than that. But for a long time, it was just kind of me and him and a couple other employees here. But it goes back probably 15 years. I met Wes I was writing about video games, just trying to do what I could to write reviews for free, just so I could get a ticket to E3. And back in the day, that was the place to be, was E3. And you couldn't get in unless you were a journalist. And all you had to be a journalist was to write a review for some website, right? So, you would spend your time writing reviews just to get your own, just to have the chance to get to E3, get to buy your own ticket, your own plane ticket, pay for everything. But that's where you had to be if you wanted to work in the video game industry, right?
Yep.
So there was a local website here that was owned by like Sinclair Broadcasting Group and Fox. It was called Gamer's Edge, and I ran into the guy who ran it, and his name was Nathan Stevens, and he's like, "Hey, come write for me." And that's where I met Wes. Wes was writing there, and it pretty quickly, Wes and I kind of hit it off, and we figured out that we wanted to do a lot more than just write about games, right? We had other things we wanted to do, we just didn't know what. So he and I experimented with a ton of things, everything from putting ads inside of video games to like putting Ford Motor Company inside of a game and that whole angle. And we launched a video game show in Times Square where we showed trailers on the largest HD billboard there. It was called Game Cinema HD. We started a consulting firm called Gun. Actually, it was a consulting firm where we would work on people's games behind the scenes. So we'd fly to EA or fly to Microsoft or wherever, and they would say, "Hey, what do you think about our games?" And luckily, we hired some other people that had clout, so they let us in the door, and they were inside Microsoft and EA telling them what we think about their games. And it's a weird experience when you're surrounded by these super high-level creative people, and they're very talented, and they're asking you what you think about the game. But it was a thing. But ultimately, we figured out that you don't get credit for that, right? They don't tell you in the credits, our names aren't there, and you want to be known for things that you create, right? So that was about the time that Gun flipped the switch from a consulting firm into a video game creator / publisher. And our first game was called Breach and Clear. It was a mobile game as Special Operations Forces. It was very old school Tom Clancy, Rainbow Six, if you remember that. So, and it did very well, enough for us to start down the path of creating bigger games like we would for summer camp, which turned into Friday the 13th. And that's kind of the end of the story. But really, it goes back about 15 years. I've known Wes that long, and we just kind of refused to give up, right? Just kept doing new things until we found our footing, I guess. So
yeah, that's what it's all about. Just sitting there, just seeing how far you can stretch it and like where you can take things,
Yeah, if something doesn't work out, just don't quit, just adjust, right? Yeah. We did a lot of that, and when you're creative, it's easy to keep going because you can find new avenues, I think, just different paths to take. Yeah. So I think that helped us. like sometimes when you hit roadblocks, you can feel like you need to stop, right? Oh, that didn't work out. Instead of just adjusting and going around the roadblock. So that's what we did a lot of. So,
Well, I'm happy you guys found
yeah,
this road, you know what I mean? Because you guys have like great games out, you know, and so
yeah,
a lot of people have made friendships off of your games on the online community, you know. So I
yeah,
had seen just back in June, there was an announcement that was made that let fans know that the expiration of the game's license for Friday
yeah,
the 13th came to a head,
yeah,
you know, laid out a lot of perks and stuff like that. So,
yeah, yeah.
um,
We've received a lot of messages like that where people have gotten married because they met through
yeah,
Friday the 13th, or content creators started their channel just playing our game and they grew and got big.
mm,
Lifelong friends have been met. I can't tell you how many times I've received like personal messages on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, where it's just people just saying, "Man, I'm glad you guys made this game." Like,
mhm.
I won't name a name because I won't do that, but one guy in particular hadn't talked to his dad in a long time, and they had like a rift between them. But his dad loved horror movies and Friday the 13th, and it was our game that they started playing our game together, and it brought them back together. Just little stories like that that they mean a heck of a lot to us, and we hear that constantly. So I know that Friday the 13th was a big game for a lot of people. Just, I mean, it's fun to play with your friends, and I did the same thing with my own game. Just
Mm.
getting in there and meeting new people and playing in all hours of the night and just goofing off in it, and it was a good time. So I like hearing stories like that. Yeah,
Now, what's the process like putting together games like Friday the 13th and Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
yeah. It's you know, so after we made Reach and Clear, and it was on the App Store, it was an App Store game, and we had enough money to like start what we were doing next. Um, it's funny because we set out to make something that was Friday the 13th like, but you never know where it's going to go. And you don't really know. You can't see 5 years in the future, 10 years in the future. So you really don't know what all of it entails until you sit down and make a game. And I know that, Friday the 13th is a little different than Texas. For Friday, things happen so fast that we released a trailer in 2014. It was called Summer Camp at that point. It was on Halloween 2014. This was, I mean, that's forever ago now. I mean, that's like
Yeah.
8, 9 years ago, right? And there was nothing at all kind of like it. So the press latched onto it, and the horror fans latched onto it far more than we had even imagined. We knew that having Tom Savini in the game and Kane in the game would get horror fans talking, but what we didn't know was what the video game industry would do and how they would react and be like, "Wow, this is great! We haven't seen this before. They're taking the slasher model and they're bringing it to video games. This is crazy, right?" It just seemed like something we wanted to do. Like at the time, it didn't seem that crazy to us because we grew up watching slasher movies, right? So it came at us really quickly, and we launched the Kickstarter a year later, and it turned into Friday 13th, and then we were off and running without a whole lot of time to think and breathe,
Mhm.
right? It was just like this massive wave of pressure and ongoing. We want these kills. We want these maps. People started to expect a lot of you once you announce that you're making a game, right? Of something they know and they love. They start imagining things. Oh man, I hope they do that map, or I hope they had these characters. So there wasn't a lot of time to breathe. And then when the game came out, it did very well. And the servers were all weird, and we had to fix those. And then we did the DLC, and then there was a lawsuit. And so it was a big, it seemed like it was a long time, but it was all condensed into this flurry of just like an onslaught, so to speak. But for Texas, we have our footing more, right? Obviously now we're a bigger company and we know what to expect.
Yeah.
The process, I mean, I started personally working on Texas probably 4 years ago. And while other people were here finishing up stuff on Friday and, doing their own thing and working on different projects here, I was starting the design on Texas. So it's been like 4 years. That's about what it takes to make this game. And it's been, I don't know, the way I like to describe it is, if you're asking specifically what it's like to make a game.
Mm-hmm.
When you make a movie, not to downplay films at all, because I love films, but if you want a location, you drive around or you scout a location and you go, okay, I love that house. You have a house, right? We're going to use that house. You still have to decorate it, but you have the location.
Mm-hmm.
And go, which actors are we going to use? Okay, then you go find the actors, right? The basic necessities are there. In a video game, you have nothing. And that's always part of the problem, is you have to create everything from scratch. So the process is a lot longer. And if you want your characters to walk, well, you have to make them walk. If you want them to run, you have to go mocap people running if you want it to look good. If you want them to crouch, they don't do that automatically, right? Just something as simple as opening doors and crouching and picking up a weapon or doing anything that's human-like. You have to actually make them do that. And that's why it's so time-consuming. Oh, you want the Slaughter family house set in Texas with a sunset and trees and grass? Well, you have to make all that, right? So that's really the process of creating a video game in a nutshell, is the creation of everything you see on the screen, right? And unless you use like art assets that are already made, but then they start to look the same as other games. So yeah, it's a long but rewarding process, I guess, is the short answer.
Now, you brought up some of the DLC content, like we as a digital content creator, we all learn from losses that, the victories come from that time that you just lost, and it makes us better. What are some key things that you took away from all the issues that kind of happened that kind of help you out in the future?
Yeah, so never assume anything, right? I hate to be this way, but don't trust, completely into anything, even if there's a contract or even if there's a handshake or anything. You have to be vigilant about everything. And you can't take anything for granted, right? So what I would say on the gameplay side, or lessons maybe we learned from Friday, is we knew it worked. So it was like validation, I guess, that a lot of people wanted to play this style of game, and other companies also wanted that because they made their own games based around that. So we knew that it was a good idea. So it was now, what lessons can we learn? Like people being trolls. That's always a lesson that you learn when you're playing online games, right? There's a subset of people that set out to ruin the game, and that's their only goal. And it's just human nature. Yeah. So it sounds silly, but a lot of the lessons that you learn are based on that, right? It's never that game design feature didn't work like we thought. Those are things we talk about every day, right? And it's usually a lack of money or time that keeps you from perfecting those. But what you can't plan for, is what's hard to plan for, at least, is someone doing something on purpose to ruin the game, right? And those are the lessons that are hardest to learn, because you have to think like 2,000 or 2 million people that want to ruin a game just for fun. It's kind of the culture we're in video and online games, where I play it to enjoy it with my friends, but not everyone does that. And they set out to absolutely ruin any experience they can, and they'll do anything to make it happen. So it's just little things like, okay, can this door block someone, right? If I stand in front of this door, can I keep someone from leaving, right? You would never just think that, right? Unless you're a troll and you want to do that, right? So those are the things you have to look out for. Or in Friday the 13th, it was kind of funny, but people would take the car and they drive it to the front door of the cabin and block the cabin door, right? Or they would just do funny things, right? That they thought was funny, but it would like break the game for other players. And sometimes it's malicious, and sometimes it's just having fun, like goofing off in the car. So yeah, I don't know. I think, to answer your question, I think there are a lot of mini lessons to be learned, but this project is so different that they're not all applicable, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what are some of the DLC contents that you wish could have seen the light of day? For
Friday the 13th?
For Friday.
Yeah, obviously, everyone wanted to see Jason X.
Yeah.
Nobody more than us. Everyone wanted that. Kane was excited about it. Everyone was excited about it. Delphonic was excited about it. Those things cost money to make.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know if you ever made a map from scratch or something like that, but DLC maps are expensive. Really, really expensive. So imagine just taking money and flushing it down the toilet.
Yeah.
So we're always excited about, DLC, because it's good for the players and it keeps the game fresh. And that's an important part of like the live service environment we live in, is ongoing DLC maps and characters and things like that. But yeah, for me personally, I think everyone at the company might have a different answer, but Jason X was probably the one that I wanted to see the most, just because I remember the movie, and it's one of Kane's biggest movies, right? As silly as it is, it's that cult movie where people laugh at it, but at the same time they like it. And
exactly,
it had Let the Bodies Hit the Floor, in the movie, and the soundtrack came on. It was just the perfect I don't care movie, but you do, right? And you're cheering and you're like yelling at the screen, and it's goofy, but at the same time it's like endearing. So we would have brought that same vibe to
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
I wanted to see the Friday the 13th, a new beginning that you guys had that the Roy set up, like when the
Yeah.
count was didn't know who was who. My
Yeah, the paranoia mode. Yeah, that would have been good too. And oddly enough, Among Us,
Yep, yeah.
it's kind of like that, which is funny that we don't know them, they don't know us, but you have that idea. They say that three other people have the same idea, and yeah, that was a fun stuff for us to hang out and do, was paranoia. But yeah, people get mad now when you mention paranoia. They still get mad about it. They're like, damn you, give us and you're like, sorry, I can't. But
Yeah. So now let's talk about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game that is set to release on August 18th. How did you guys land this project?
yeah, so because of the success of Friday the 13th, we had quite a few people approaching us, right? Hey, turn my movie into a game, or turn this book into a game, or do what you did for Friday, but do it for me, basically. And a lot of those are just out for money, and some of them are really genuine and had really interesting projects that I can't name, unfortunately, but they were horror, some were sci-fi, some were comedy. I mean, you name it. I mean, it was a thing where, I mean, Wes alone, because he deals with a lot of contracts and he speaks to a lot of movie studios about stuff and about interactive rights. And, more than several times he'd come into our room or office and like, hey, they just sent me these 50. Do we want any of these? And we're like, oh my God, right? And you spend a couple of weeks just scanning IPs and you go, maybe we could probably make a game like that, but we don't like it. Or we really like that franchise, but it wouldn't make a great game. So we were looking for, I mean, me personally, having Texas Chainsaw is my top 3 horror films all time. So I had always, even going back to Friday before summer camp, had like a multiple killer kind of angle in mind. I knew it would work, but I knew it wouldn't work for Friday the 13th. So I was prepared already for that. I just didn't know if we could get Texas Chainsaw. So eventually we got in contact with Kim Hinkle and his crew well, they're not Vortex anymore, Exerbia Films. And so, yeah, we found out that there was mutual interest. And but it took a while because we were just talking to so many different people about so many different projects and trying to find the perfect one. But I think the reason, and I don't know if you're going to ask this later, but the reason we chose Texas, not only because we love it, it's because it's something different too. It's not what people would expect. I wouldn't say they expected it more than something like Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street, right? It wasn't people's first obvious choice, but when you think about the multiple killers and the family aspect and what that does to like gameplay, that's why we were eager to make a Texas Chainsaw Massacre game over some other ones. So, but yeah, it was basically, we got in touch with them and they're like, heck yes, let's do this. And, because sometimes you get in touch with people and they don't understand and they don't know what games are. Maybe their nephew plays games, but they knew what Friday the 13th was. And they had played, a few of his son and stuff had played it. So they knew about Friday the 13th. So they were eager to talk to us too. So it was great. It was mutual. So yeah.
That's awesome how everything just works out,
Yeah, it doesn't always just happen like in a boardroom, where, a lot of times it's just, it seems like it's meant to be. And eventually you just land into the right project. Only because you say no to these other 100.
Yeah.
And then you take your time and then you go, wait, something else is a possibility. And then something maybe you think you have gets shut down, but then this opportunity comes instead. And it's funny kind of how life works out like that. But
so the gameplay looks crazy. A few weeks ago, you guys had an event where people could come and play the game. I think you guys were down in Texas, right? Because I was like, I want to play. And you were like, oh, come down to Texas.
I was telling you to come down. Yeah, I was like, so we had the tech test, right? Yeah. Which was over a month ago now, where I'm sure you saw people playing the tech test.
Yeah.
So that was our first, just let the public get a hold of it and see what they can break, and put some stress on the servers, and to watch people play the characters and to see how they were playing and how our vision and our design, and Sumo Nottingham obviously is our developer, so much of their stuff as well. But when I say us, I mean Gun and Sumo Digital. Just to see how people play your game after all these years. We've been making it for 4 years now, and to let people take a controller and play your game without you guiding them, it's a scary it's kind of like showing your movie trailer, right? Or having a screening for a movie. And that's a scary thing, but everyone loved it. Like, I think we knew that people were going to like it, but it was 99.5% overall positive that people loved it, and they saw how different it was, and they understood what we were trying to do, which was great. So then we had the press event, in Texas. That was actually kind of like a press event party kind of thing, just for us as well, after all these years of working on it. But we invited some content creators and some press members and stuff. And we had a big party. We built the slaughterhouse, family house in there, and then we gave away a bunch of nuggets. Who's our chicken in our game. So Xbox made us these. Oh, this guy.
Oh, yep.
So this is Nugget. He's in our game. He's in a cage. If you get too close to him, he'll narc on you.
Okay.
So his name's Nugget. He kind of took off in the community. So Microsoft made us some plushy nuggets. So anyway, we had that test, and we had the public event, and obviously Kane was there, and Kim Hinkle, and all the actors and actresses, and Edwin Neal was there, and so it was a big Texas Chainsaw event, and it was really, really awesome. Even though it was about 110 degrees, outside at that time. But so that was recently. But
now the game's set to come out on PlayStation, Xbox, and PC, right?
Yep.
Now, is this all going to be cross-play, or is it just you play on the systems?
There's some cross-play.
Okay.
Yeah, there's cross-play. So you can play cross-play or not. It's up to you.
Okay.
There's a, like in the menu, there's a section to opt out or opt in. So a lot of times people only want to play within their ecosystem. Sometimes they don't want to play with PC gamers. Sometimes they do. So it all depends on you. And sometimes PC gamers don't want to play with console players.
Exactly.
Really, it's only for shooters that the high reaction times or cheat software that people that play shooters like to use on PC and things. But in a game like ours, it's not as big of a deal. But we do have crossplay. So
how does it feel putting out a game on the new gen systems? So how's it been?
Yeah, that's well, when we started the game, the new generation consoles, they weren't out yet.
Okay.
Right? So it's scary but awesome, because you have some benchmarks and some specs, but you don't really know what they're capable of. Because even when the PS5 or Xbox Series X launches, they don't launch with a whole lot of launch titles, right? There's always that first year where people are figuring out how to use the systems and take advantage of the power and do all that stuff. So you're kind of jumping in blindly, and you're not for sure what you can get away with and what you can't, and how much you can handle. And you're also trying to make a game that'll work on everything. So it needs to work on Series X and PS5, but then also Xbox One and PS4. And it's also got to work on 1,000 machines on Steam, right? Or Xbox like Windows. So you're trying to make a game that can be scaled up or down based on the power. And you want to do these crazy things for the high-end consoles and the high-end PCs, but you have to balance it, right? So making a game for something new is tricky at times, because you have to throttle your expectations a little bit when you're making them, and try not to go too crazy. But
well, that's cool, because like we said, we had fun with the Xbox and the PS4. Now I'm ready to see like the graphics and everything on PS5 and like Xbox One. So
what do you have? Do you have a PS5 or Series X or anything?
I have all of them.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So that's the thing.
Well, it's free on Game Pass, so it's on Game Pass, and then or you can buy it on PS5.
Yeah, I'm gonna get them on all systems, because that was the thing when PlayStation. when Friday the 13th came out, I had them on like all the systems. So
Nice.
Had it on the Switch. Wanted to play it on the go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it's Texas Chainsaw's on everything but the Switch.
Yeah. Maybe down the road.
It's one of those things where I think they're going to announce a new Switch model soon, and it could potentially be more powerful. But it's one of those things of it's a different ecosystem. You have to build from scratch almost. And I love my Switch, but at the end of the day, it's the least powerful of the consoles. So, it just is what it is, but you never know.
Yeah. So now, what are some key things fans can look forward to from this project?
I think that, the main thing that we are trying to educate people on is how different it even is from Friday the 13th or any other game on the market. I know it's easy to make comparisons, because it happens in the film industry all the time, right? Where movies come in like, oh, it's kind of like that other one, or but it could not be completely different. I mean, our multiple killers, 3 killers on the map at once, chasing you and working together, even on paper, it's hard to explain the thousands of things that can happen from that. You know, if you play, it happens a lot in shooters. So if you play Battlefield or Call of Duty or something, the moment to moment gameplay changes based on who's in front of you at any given moment, right? Or something catches your attention behind you, or you're in a 3-on-1 firefight and all of a sudden your buddies show up and now it's even, right? A lot of this things happen. And there's a lot of those moments in Texas where you hear your teammates on like the victim side going, oh my God, Leatherface is out back, right? So you go, okay, I'm going out front. And then the cook is out there, or Johnny or Sissy. You're like, shit, stay here. Don't go that way. And then the Leatherface comes back around, but he turns his chainsaw off. So you think he's in the back, but he actually came around the front of the house and turned his chainsaw off and he's hiding. Or I don't know how many times I've escaped a situation and like went through a crawl space or something and I think I'm safe, only to figure out that they led me that way. And there's a killer in there waiting for me. Mm-hmm. So a team of killers using their brains and working against you, making you think that you're safe, or funneling you towards different areas. We even turned the generator off that guards the front gate. We turn it off sometimes to encourage victims to come. Mm-hmm. And then we'll turn it on as soon as we see them, and then Leatherface is like waiting. So it really is a game of like cat and mouse, with if there were 3 cats. So it's very intense and very, very different experience. Yeah, each match you never know who you're playing with, right? Yeah, you can play against a beginner family, or you can play against a family that's grinded each character. You can play against a try-hard family. You can play against someone who just wants to have fun and be casual. And also you can play with a team of victims that aren't good or they're new, right? It all depends on who you're playing with, and it kind of changes. So it feels like a horror film kind of each time.
Yeah, because when the trailer came out and I seen like the 3 killers, I was just like, oh my goodness, this is going to be crazy. And I can only imagine like how it's going to take off online, you know, on Twitch and everywhere. Everybody sits there. You can just watch the stream, watching the gameplay. It's totally different, something fun. So I definitely can't wait for it to come out. So
yeah, we and that was one of the good things, was seeing how the community reacted to Twitch streamers playing it, right, and YouTubers, and reading the comments. And because it's one thing to have them play it and have fun, but are people watching it? Do they have fun as well? Yeah. Are they engaged in what's happening on the screen? And a lot of times they're more engaged. Yeah. And it's just, we spend a lot of time watching that and reading the real-time comments to see if people were enjoying themselves. Because that's another aspect you have to deal with in today's market, is not just the streamers, but the people that are watching the streamers. Yeah. Are they just in there checking out? Or are they engaging and having fun and encouraging the Twitch streamer to have fun, and the YouTuber? So it's a different world we live in now. Yeah. But then there's also the other side. Does the press like it? And does the average consumer like it? Like, do the horror fans like it? Are like people like you? Are you logging on with your friends every night and playing? And, you know, are you all having fun? So we're trying to hit every one of those, trying to tick every box, so to speak, with that. But
yeah, the horror community is definitely ready for it. Like, all my friends are sitting there saying they can't wait for it to come out. Like I said, pre-orders are already open, so everyone listening, definitely pre-order this game now. Get your hands on it. It's gonna have physical copies and digital copies. Yeah, all systems except for Switch for right now. Yeah, but hopefully that something comes down the line. Yeah. But Ronnie, thank you so much for joining me today, man. Can you tell listeners how they can find you, get in touch with you, get any information about Gun Interactive?
Yeah. Heck, I mean, I'll give you a couple. You can find me. I'm mostly on this Instagram. It's Ronnie Hobbs, so pretty easy to find me. Our Texas Chainsaw Shows are TX Chainsaw Game, so those are pretty easy to find on everything, even on Threads now. Apparently, that's, you know, we got to be on Threads too. So, oddly enough, I'm like, I always forget to check it. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot we have another social media platform to keep up with.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You know, yeah, TX Chainsaw Game, and Fear the Gun is our gun account. But yeah, you can find any info you want to know about any of the new characters, the new family members that we created with Kim Hinkle, all the maps that are available at launch. Did you see all the maps we have, by the way? Like,
I seen a few of them. I'm sitting there, I just want to go into it like with a blind bag at that point. I'm like, all right, I'm just ready to go in. I'm ready to play.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we added, I don't know if you know, we have time of day differences. So we have dusk, dawn, and nighttime. So variants of some of the maps, so that the family house at night is a different experience than the family house in the morning. So that was something really cool that I think people during the tech test and during our event were really, really excited about. That it's going to be cool, but all of a sudden when those shadows that you're used to are gone because the sun's out and you don't have nighttime to make you more stealthy, you have to adjust your play style. So I think you'll like it. I think you'll like it in that regard. But yeah, TX Chainsaw Game on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, and so
Nice. All right,
well,
everyone, go out, pre-order the Texas Chainsaw Massacre now. It's going to be available on all systems except for the Switch. Maybe we can get something down the road. We'll see. But like I said, again, Ronnie, thanks so much for coming on. And I'm glad that you came on. I appreciate you taking the time out your day.
yeah, man. Anytime. Maybe when the game comes out, we can play some matches together and we can
Oh,
chat
definitely.
about that. So yeah, anytime, man. I appreciate it. I had fun.
All right. Everybody, thanks for tuning in tonight to PVD Horror. Take it easy. Have a good night.